Christmas. Although it's said to be the most wonderful time of the year, how true is this really? While much of the world will be partaking in gift giving, tree decorating, ornaments, presents, and Christmas meals throughout the season, here's what you didn't know about Christmas. Because did you know that Christmas was in fact banned in America at one point? Oh yes, this is true, and what you're looking at is an actual public notice that was posted, and it even says the observation of Christmas having been deemed a sacrilege, the exchanging of gifts and greetings, dressing in fine clothing, feasting, and similar satanical practices are hereby forbidden, with the offender liable to a fine of 5 shillings. And notice how it's also classified as satanical practices, but it's also considered and deemed a sacrilege. And if you look at that word, it actually means, according to Oxford Dictionary, the violation or misuse of what is regarded as sacred, and according to Merriam-Webster, it means a gross irreverence toward a hallowed person, place, or thing. In 1647, Christmas was officially banned by English Parliament and the Puritan leaders. Oliver Cromwell, who was a Puritan leader at the time, banned all Christmas-related activities from 1647 all the way up until 1660. However, the Puritans banned Christmas between the years 1659 and 1681. In America specifically, it was Alabama that became the first state to legalize Christmas in 1836, followed by Louisiana and Arkansas as of 1838, hence the celebration that commonly occurs on December 25th. But what was once considered a satanical practice and a sacrilege, and if you look at the etymology of the word sacrilege, you'll see that it means stealer of the sacred things. Is there some truth to that? Let's find out, because what you're going to see is that Christmas was celebrated thousands of years ago, even before the birth of the Messiah. In fact, in Warner Keller's book, The Bible as History, we receive this following admission, quote, December 25th is referred to in documents as Christmas Day in AD 324 for the first time. Under the Roman Emperor Justinian as of the 6th century AD, it was recognized as an official holiday. An old Roman festival played a major part in the choice of this particular day. December 25th in ancient Rome was known as the Dies Natali Invictus, which can also be pronounced as the Dies Natali Solis Invicti or Sol Invictus, which also means birth of the unconquered sun, the day of the winter solstice, and at the same time in Rome, the last day of the Saturnalia, which had long since degenerated into a week of unbridled carnival. So on December 25th, in ancient Mithraism, this day gave homage to Mithras, the sun idol, who oddly resembles Lady Liberty, as you can see with the halo behind. But this day did not just give homage to Mithras, oh, quite the contraire. Now there was also the ancient Roman festival known as Saturnalia, which was a festival in homage of the sun idol Saturn, originally held on December 17th for a week, with festivities all the way up until December 23rd. Now during this pagan Roman winter solstice, it was celebrated with the sacrifice at the temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum, along with a public banquet. But did you also know that during Saturnalia, there was also private gift-giving, continual partying, carnival atmospheres that also overturned Roman social norms, and during this time, gambling was also permitted? And according to Michael Grant's book, History of Rome, before long the Emperor Aurelian established a massive temple of the unconquerable sun as the central and focal point of the entire religious system of the state of Rome, and the birthday of this pagan deity was to be observed into December 25th and thus transformed into what's commonly known as Christmas. But there was the ancient Roman winter solstice festival, also known as Brumalia, that honored and gave homage to idols such as Saturn and Kronos, as well as Ceres and Demeter and even Bacchus. And by the Byzantine era, celebrations went from November 24th all the way up until Saturnalia around December 23rd and lasted close to a month and was celebrated as late as the 6th century AD. And during this time, feasting, merriment, and sacrificing pigs to idols took place. And then, contemporarily speaking, this all gave rise to what's commonly known as Yule, which is one of the pagan Wiccan celebrations that is commonly celebrated and observed from December 20th all the way up until December 23rd in order to celebrate the rebirthing of the sun. Although originally observed by Germanic peoples, giving homage to Odin, who is also known as the Germanic god of death, among several others, this festival is just one of the 8 festivals that's celebrated by the Wiccans around the same time as Christmas. And not only does it have to do with paying homage to the rebirthing of the sun, but it's also all about magic, bonfires, as well as potluck and feasting. But where does Christmas really come from? Did it really originate 2,000 years beforehand, or was it a celebration that was partaken even thousands of years before that? Because according to the Roman Catholic Church and the Catholic Encyclopedia of the 1911 edition, when you even look up the word Christmas, you will see that it says Christmas was not among the earliest festivals of the church, and then it goes on to say that, quote, the first evidence of the feast is from Egypt, unquote. But what you're about to see is that Christmas traces its origins all the way back to Babylon. Now we will be talking about topics that are commonly associated with Christmas today, the first being most commonly known to many, Santa Claus. Because did you know Santa Claus is actually a corruption of the name Saint Nicholas, who was a Roman Catholic bishop during the 5th century AD. And according to Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume 19, pages 648 through 649, you will read, quote, Saint Nicholas, Bishop of Myra, a saint honored by the Greeks and Latins on the 6th of December. And it also says, a legend of his surreptitious bestowal of dowries on the 3 daughters of an impoverished citizen is said to have originated the old custom of giving presents in secret on the eve of Saint Nicholas or December 6th, which was then subsequently transferred to Christmas Day, hence the association of Christmas with Santa Claus. But there is something even darker and more interesting and suspicious indeed when you closely look at Santa Claus and even his name, Santa. Because if you unscramble the word Santa, you get the word Satan, and you can actually do this on your own and you will see that this is the case. But this isn't the only way that Christmas pays homage to Satan. Oh, we're just getting started. Now we'll be discussing the Christmas tree and its origins, because it's not what you think it is, and it does not originate where you think it comes from. Now, the Christmas tree originated in Germany, but also got its roots from the Romans, who then got it from the Egyptians, who then also got it from the Babylonians. And we even see mention of Christmas trees in Scripture as spoken of in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 4 as well. But what is the real purpose behind the Christmas tree? Well, according to William Walsh's Curiosities of Popular Customs, page 242, quote, an old Babylonian fable told of an evergreen tree which sprang out of a dead tree stump. The old stump symbolized the dead Nimrod. The new evergreen tree symbolized that Nimrod had come to life again in Tammuz. Among the Druids, the oak was sacred. Among the Egyptians, it was the palm. And in Rome, it was the fir, which was decorated with red berries during the Saturnalia. There is much more to the story when it comes to the Christmas tree. And what does the obelisk and the Christmas tree have in common, you may be wondering? They are both phallic symbols that represent the phallic symbol of Nimrod, and the Babylonian story goes as follows. After the death of Nimrod in Babylonian tradition, who is commonly known as Horus in Egyptian tradition, what then happened is that the wife of Nimrod, who is Semiramis or Isis in Egyptian tradition, then scooped up all of his body parts, finding all of them except one body part. And of course, the one part that she did not find was his phallic symbol, or his penis, which then became a symbol and symbolized by the obelisk and even the Christmas tree. Because whether you know it or not, Christmas actually gives homage to the birth of Nimrod, the sun idol, and we'll be talking more about that in just a moment to come. And then of course we have presents and gift giving, which originates all the way back to Saturnalia, paying homage to Saturn, the deity of agriculture. But what about the lovely ornaments you see on Christmas trees? Where do they originate from? In ancient Roman tradition, the Romans decorated their trees in order to honor Bacchus, the god of fertility, during Saturnalia, and they also placed 12 candles on the tree in honor of the sun god. But that's not all. And what the Greeks did is that they worshipped Adonia, who was allegedly brought back to life or rebirth by the serpent Asclepius after having been slain, once again paying homage to rebirthing during this time. And we also know that the Germans attached fruit and candles on their trees in order to honor Woden, where the name Wednesday originates from. But what about all of those lovely lights that you see? Well, these lights, along with the ornaments, they give homage to Nimrod, the sun deity, representing rebirth of the sun, and we know that Satan transforms himself as a messenger or angel of light, because the Christmas tree and the Christmas lights and the Christmas decoration, they all give homage and honor to Nimrod, who is commonly also known as Baal, not to mention the stars on the Christmas tree, which represents the star of Ishtar, the wife of Satan, literally. And then we have the reindeer, in which we're commonly taught and told that the reindeer are the ones that sleigh around Santa so that he can deliver presents to children on the evening of Christmas Day. But there's even a darker truth behind what reindeer really symbolize. Because according to paganism, reindeer are commonly associated with the horn god of the pagans, most commonly the horn god Cernunnos, who oddly resembles the Baphomet. Now Cernunnos is said to be the Celtic god of fertility, animals, wealth, as well as the underworld. But there is more to be told about reindeer even in Norse mythology. In Norse mythology, there is also a horse who is commonly known as Sleipnir, who is an 8-legged horse of the god Odin, who is known to be a, quote, helping spirit, and became a stallion giant and travels throughout the worlds in Norse stories and myths. Now that you know that Satan is actually the one that's riding these reindeers and not Santa, you'll know what reindeer is all about when it comes to Christmas. If you're thinking about decorating with bows of holly, well, just know that they represent a symbol of fertility, just like rabbits and Easter eggs for Easter, as well as giving homage to Isis herself, commonly known as Easter, the symbol of the fertility goddess. But what about the wreaths, mistletoe, and Yule log? Well, according to Encyclopedia Americana, it states, quote, the holly, the mistletoe, and the Yule log are all relics of pre-Christian times. In fact, according to Frederick Haskin's 1926 book, Answers to Question, Haskin states, quote, the use of Christmas wreaths is believed by authorities to be traceable to the pagan customs of decorating buildings and places of worship at the feast which took place at the same time as Christmas. And what about the Yule log itself? Well, it actually represents the Scandinavian fertility god as well as the rebirth of the sun god Lu, and note the phallic symbol of this symbolism as well. In fact, the Yule log was commonly used in a rite of Teutonic nature worship. So now you'll know the real definition and origins of the Yule log and the wreaths. And then we have the mistletoe, which according to the Encyclopedia Britannica under Santa Tales, quote, the European mistletoe is thought to have had special ritual significance in Druid ceremonies and lives in folklore today, its special status as the Christmas mistletoe having come from Anglo-Saxon times. Mistletoe itself is a parasite that lives on oak trees, and also note that the Druids worshipped in oak tree groves. The ancient Celtics associated with the Druids also used to give mistletoe as an herbal remedy to barren animals to make them fertile. And it is still referred to as an all-healer in Celtic, and like the mistletoe, holly berries were also thought to be sacred to the sun god. The original sun log came to be called the Yule log, and Yule simply means wheel, which has long been a pagan representation of the sun. Well then, you're probably saying to yourself that Christmas is just a mere celebration of the Messiah that's spoken of in the New Testament in order to celebrate and reverence his birth that was allegedly on December 25th. But what if I told you that he was not even born on December 25th or nowhere near December 25th with scripture to prove it? The Messiah of the New Testament, whose real name is Yahusha, was born nowhere near December 25th, but was born sometime during the fall feasts in September and October of today. But, however, there were many others who were born on December 25th in many mythologies, Jesus Christ included. Because as you see right here, December 25th was celebrated and hallowed as the birth of many sun gods, including Nimrod, and some of them we've already gone over, including Horus for Egypt, Mithras for Persia, Tammuz for Babylon, as well as Buddha and Krishna, as well as Dionysus and Zoroaster, and the list goes on. And note how they all have a sun symbol behind all of them too, which is where you get all the sun symbolism as we see throughout many ancient cultures, and even today with sun worship and worshiping on Sunday indeed. And the reason that December 25th was chosen specifically is because this day has to do with the rebirth of the sun. And note how this day typically comes 3 days after the shortest day and the longest night of the year, where the sun is now starting to shine longer in the day, therefore symbolizing its rebirth, aka the birth of Nimrod or Baal, the sun god. In fact, nowhere in scripture does our Father or the Messiah himself even say or command to observe birthdays anywhere whatsoever. And the places that we do see birthdays being observed is by the Pharaoh in Bereshith, or Genesis chapter 40 verses 20 through 23, as well as the birth of Herod in Matthew chapter 14 verses 6. So we see that nowhere in scripture does our Mashiach Yahusha tell us to celebrate his birthday, and nowhere does our Father Yahuwah even tell us to observe Christmas either. And we know even with scripture telling us that the Mashiach was not even born during the time of Christmas. And we know that because according to Luke chapter 2 verses 8, when the Messiah was born, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. However, that could never occur in Judea in the month of December, because the shepherds always brought their flocks from the mountainsides in the fields and curled them no later than October 15th to protect them from the cold, rainy season that followed after that date. And if you look at Song of Solomon chapter 2 verses 11 and Ezra chapter 10 verses 9, you'll see that winter was a rainy season and the shepherds were not permitted to abide in the open fields at night because of the cold. And according to the Adam Clark Commentary, Volume 5, page 370 of the New York edition, quote, "It was ancient custom among Hebrews of those days to send out their sheep to the fields and deserts about the Passover or early spring, and then bring them home at the commencement of the first rain, which was commonly during the autumn, well before the winter time." And if you look very carefully at Luke chapter 1, you will see that the Messiah was conceived 6 months after John or Yahuchanan the Immerser or Baptist, and therefore was born 6 months after John, and during this time he was born during the time of the fall feasts. But that's not all, because we also see in Scripture that our Father actually tells us not to celebrate Christmas or have any affiliation with it whatsoever, because Jeremiah chapter 10 verses 1 through 4, our Father even tells us, "Learn not the way of the heathen," and describes a practice that sounds just like Christmas that the heathen partook in hundreds of years before the Mashiach or the Messiah was even on the earth. As well as Amos chapter 5 verses 21 through 22, where our Father Yahuwah even says, I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Though ye offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts." We also see in the Torah how Christmas actually breaks commandments, and how our Father Yahuwah time and time again speaks against Christmas and all these other holidays, even in Exodus chapter 20 verses 1 through 17. Because we see that it breaks the first, second, and third commandments, as well as in Deuteronomy chapter 12 verses 29 through 31, which says we are not to be involved in any type of paganisms whatsoever. Deuteronomy chapter 12 verses 1 through 4, which says we are to have no graven or carved images whatsoever. And then we also have Exodus chapter 34 verses 13, Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 5, and Deuteronomy chapter 16 verses 21, which says no Asherah poles or trees whatsoever, and that includes Christmas trees, with Jeremiah chapter 2 verses 20 as a witness. And we also know the feast days that our Father Yahuwah commands us to celebrate and to keep and observe in Leviticus chapter 23 specifically, and we even know that the Messiah of the New Testament even kept these feast days too. And Scripture even says that we are not to add or take away from the words that are written in Scripture. Once again, nowhere in Scripture does the Messiah or the Mashiach Yahusha tell us to celebrate his birthday anywhere. Nowhere in Scripture do we even see the word Christmas or even the word Sunday found anywhere. Nowhere does our Father Yahuwah tell us to observe or celebrate Christmas and speaks against it. And the question that we should be having and thinking about is, are we following truth or Babylonian customs and traditions? Are we following truth or tradition? That is the question. And according to Alexander Hislop's The Two Babylons, quote, "Long before the 4th century and long before the Christian era itself, a festival was celebrated among the heathen at that precise time of the year in honor of the birth of the son of the Babylonian Queen of Heaven, and it may fairly be presumed that, in order to conciliate the heathen and to swell the number of the nominal adherents of Christianity, the same festival was adopted by the Roman Church, giving it only the name of Christ." So the next time you're thinking about celebrating Christmas with your family, or even putting up a Christmas tree and decorating that Christmas tree with ornaments and other things, and the next time you're thinking about dressing up as Santa Claus, or even celebrating it with your family and giving gifts with your kids and giving presents with your children, you'll know the exact origins of Christmas from front to back and from left to right. Because yes, Christmas is very pagan indeed, and has its roots grounded in paganisms and Babylon all over again. And the question once again is, are we following truth or tradition. And as always, remember to seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha for even more truth. But this is Truth Unveiled here, saying shalom.